Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the August 20th, 2018 version of the City of Brentwood's Board of Aldermen regular meeting. And we are just about ready to go. We've got one of our members attending by way of teleconference from Wisconsin, Alderman Wegge. Everyone else is here. Yours truly, Alderman Kramer, sitting in for the mayor this evening. And we're going to try to get through our agenda in a timely fashion as much as possible. If we could, please start off with roll call.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Here. Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
And Alderman Wegge. Here.
Alderman Wegge stated that he's present, and we have a quorum. And if we could now, please, ladies and gentlemen, rise for the reading of our Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, that the Board of Aldermen members are viewing electronically. You may have a paper version. From time to time, there's an adjustment or a revision to that electronic version that you may not necessarily see on your paper version. There are some copies of the documentation out on the table outside the chambers. If you wish, now would be a good time to grab maybe some of that paperwork if you'd like to follow along. The first item on our agenda this evening, item number 3, is the approval or amendment of the agenda. Do any of the board members have any changes to the agenda or approval of the submission? Alderman Lockmiller.
I just have a question regarding the consent agenda portion. Will we be able to discuss any item during that part of the agenda? Ask any questions of staff or whatever we want to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have an opportunity for ideally questions and to resolve any issues before we take the vote. Alderman Plufka.
I just have a real quick question too, kind of along those same lines. I see that 9B is the standing committee reports, and then there's also, so as we approach the consent agenda, as we ask questions about that, is that a time that committee chairman could, if appropriate, make verbal reports with regard to the status of their committee, or should we in fact, with this new system, be filing written reports in advance of the meeting? I guess that's my question for
Mr.
the
City Attorney?
City Attorney.
I don't know. I don't mean to be flip.
No.
Obviously, I think the idea is that it contemplates written reports, would let everybody study them, prepare questions that they might have.
Right.
And expedite and simplify the meeting process if you wish
Okay.
to do so.
All right.
Otherwise, I would think that that would be an appropriate time to give a verbal report, or at the time when you as an alderman are making a report, to report on the committee.
So under that number 7 category? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Anybody else?
These aren't intended to be cumbersome rules or problematic. It's
No,
hopefully intended to make things simpler.
I didn't take it that way
Change
at
is
all.
never easy.
Actually, that could be, the minutes from those different committee meetings might be of assistance if you want to refer to those
Okay,
as you give your reports. Suggestion.
all right, very good, thanks.
So Alderman Leahy.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, do we make the request to pull something from the consent agenda, or do we make that when we get to section 9?
My understanding is when we get to section 9.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? We need a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any questions regarding that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we have some announcements, appointments, and proclamations. And I believe we have Alderwoman O'Neill, who made a recommendation for some of tonight's proclamations. Alderwoman O'Neill, do you have anything to say before we begin?
Just briefly, that as a parent of 2 Brentwood High alumni, and as a former teacher, I always appreciate when students
do something academically or related to academics, and I don't always think they get any recognition. So I am very pleased tonight that we have several people who have done something out of the ordinary at the high school level, and we're about to honor them now.
Thank you, Alderwoman. And by the way, for those members of the audience, our residents this evening, and the prized receivers here, after we make the proclamation, we'll have an opportunity for you to have a picture taken, and you'll receive the proclamation after it's been signed, and that'll take place here momentarily. Our first one is the City of Brentwood, State of Missouri Proclamation in recognition of Ben Howe. Ben, if you're around, could you please stand up and come up near the podium? Got something to read in your favor here. Whereas Ben Howe was a sophomore at Brentwood High School while taking part in the Missouri High School Activities Association State Debate Tournament. Whereas the philosophy of the Missouri High School Activities Association instills interscholastic activities as integral part, which complements the secondary curricular program. This program provides educational and social experiences for the students and school community, which result in positive learner outcomes, contributing to the development of good citizenship, sportsmanship, and equitable competition. And whereas Ben took part in the 2018 Missouri High School Activities Association, held April 21st of this year in Springfield, Missouri, whereas Ben demonstrated a combination of his exceptional speaking and narration practices and was a student finalist in storytelling. We should have you read these up here tonight. He exhibited his creativity and ability to engage with an audience, and whereas through active participation in Brentwood High School activities and serving as an outstanding leadership example to the youth in our community, and through his personal character has shown to be an asset to our Brentwood community. Now therefore I, presiding officer Alderman Kramer, by the authority vested in me as presiding officer of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the Board of Aldermen and the Mayor for the City of Brentwood, to hereby congratulate Ben Howe for his accomplishments, creativity, leadership, and best wishes for continued success in his future endeavors. Congratulations, Ben.
Alderman Kramer, could we have you pose one more time so the city can capture a picture? Thank you.
Next one is for same member of the same family, Robin Howe. Robin, are you here this evening? We have a high-achieving family here.
Megan.
Okay, it says
Oh.
Robin.
Well, there's,
No, it says Megan.
Sorry. Megan. Thank you for being here. So Robin will not be here this evening, is that correct?
This is Robin.
This is Mom. Megan.
She's accepting from Megan.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, no, there's
Follow the bouncing ball here. We're so glad that you're here. This is a City of Brentwood, State of Missouri proclamation in recognition of Megan Howe, whereas Megan was a junior at Brentwood High School while taking part in the Missouri High School Activities Association State Debate Tournament, and whereas the philosophy of the Missouri High School Activities Association instills interscholastic activities as an integral part, which complements the secondary curricular program. This program provides educational and social experiences for the students and the school community, which result in positive learner outcomes, contributing to the development of good citizenship, sportsmanship, and equitable competition. And whereas Megan took part in the Missouri High School Activities Association debate held April 21st, 2018 in Springfield, Missouri, and the National Speech and Debate Tournament held June 17th through the 22nd of this year in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Megan, whereas, was a state finalist in radio speaking and surpassed the national preliminary rounds in expository speaking. Wow. She demonstrated her outstanding ability to prepare a script while her articulation and enunciation engaged the audience with only her voice. And whereas through active participation in Brentwood High School activities and serving as an outstanding leadership example to the youth in our community, and through her personal character has shown to be an asset to our Brentwood community. And now therefore I, presiding officer Alderman Kramer, by the authority vested in me as presiding officer of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the mayor and the board of aldermen for the city of Brentwood, do hereby congratulate Megan Haug for her accomplishments, creativity, leadership, and best wishes for continued success in her future endeavors. And the third member of our highly achieving family here for the Haug family, the City of Brentwood, State of Missouri proclamation in recognition of Robin Haug, whereas Robin Haug is an English forensics teacher and a speech and debate coach at Brentwood High School. Whereas the philosophy of the Missouri High School Activities Association instills interscholastic activities as an integral part which complements the secondary curricular program. This program provides educational and social experiences for the students and school community which result in positive learner outcomes, contributing to the development of good citizenship, sportsmanship, and equitable competition. Whereas Robin serves on the Missouri State High School Activities Association Advisory Committee for Speech, Debate, and Theater. And whereas she fills many roles and empowers students for the confidence and ability to take part in the state and national debate tournaments. Robin was recognized for her hard work and dedication and awarded by the Missouri State High School Activities Association for the 2018 Outstanding Speech, Debate, and Theater Educator Award. Wow. Whereas Robin witnesses the incredible potential of our youth and makes an impact by being a caring leader at the front of the classroom and also in all school activities through active participation in Brentwood High School and serving our students, families, and community. Her positive influence has proven to be an asset to our Brentwood community. And now, therefore, I, presiding officer Alderman Kramer, by the authority vested in me as presiding officer of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the mayor and the board of aldermen for the city of Brentwood, do hereby congratulate Robin Haug for her positive influence in school district and community and success of her students through her leadership. And we have a presentation here this evening and a proclamation for Zachary Arundel. Zachary, are you here this evening? If you are, could you please come forward? No? Okay. I'll read this in his absence. City of Brentwood, State of Missouri proclamation in recognition of Zachary Arundel. Whereas Zach Arundel is an Eagle Scout of Brentwood Troop 361 and a recent graduate of Brentwood High School. He's taking part in his education while attending Morehouse College, whereas the purpose of the National Speech and Debate Association, incorporated in 1925, is to provide recognition and support for high school and middle school students taking part in speech and debate activities, and advocates the mission to connect, support, and inspire a diverse community committed to empowering students through competitive speech and debate. In addition, the association promotes the core values of integrity, inclusion, leadership, and service. And whereas Zach took part in the 2018 National Speech and Debate Tournament held June 17th through the 22nd in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, this annual event is the largest academic competition in the world, honors the top 2% of all speech and debate competitors in the country. Whereas Zach was 12th in prose in the Missouri State High School Activities Association State Debate Tournament, and a national semifinalist, placing 14th in the nation in the program oral interpretation. Whereas Zach made school history by becoming the first Brentwood student to place in the National Speech and Debate Tournament. Whereas through active participation in Brentwood High School activities and serving as an outstanding leadership example to the youth in our community, Zach has demonstrated his personal character, and he's shown to be an asset to our Brentwood community. And so now, therefore, I, presiding officer Alderman Kramer, by the authority vested in me as presiding officer of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the mayor and the board of aldermen for the city of Brentwood, do hereby congratulate Zachary Arundel for his accomplishments, creativity, leadership, and best wishes for his continued success in all future endeavors. Congratulations to all of our high achievers. Thank you very much. And can we get this bullet to
We will.
Zach and his
He's-
family
yes.
afterwards?
Yes, we will.
He's at school.
He's
Do you
at
want me to
school.
sign
Yeah,
these
that's what I
now?
figured.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, please pardon me for one moment. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Moving through our agenda, we're up to an opportunity for our police chief, Spees, to come forward. We're up to 4E. Chief, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Hello there. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Yes, sir.
And we have your swearing in. And City Administrator Akande, if you could, please, we're going to need you to stand by for the swearing in ceremony.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to briefly read a bio on Major Angela Hawkins. Angie was raised in Maryland Heights, Missouri, graduated from Pattonville High School. She has earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Lindenwood University. As a small child, Angela was drawn to law enforcement. There was more than one occasion when her parents advised that she dialed 911 at 4 years old so the local police would come to her house and visit. As a child, Angie went door to door in her neighborhood armed with a pencil and notebook, asking neighbors if they had seen anything suspicious. In her teenage years, Angie was a police explorer in Bridgeton, and as soon as she was old enough to apply, she applied at the St. Louis Police Academy. After her police academy training, Angela's first assignment was to the South Patrol Division in the city, where she earned the First District Officer of the Month award in her first 30 days on the street. She went on to spend years in investigative units, including the Narcotics Unit, the Violent Offenders Unit, the North Patrol Detective Bureau, Major Case Squad of St. Louis, and the Homicide Unit. Angie also serves as a member of the Post-Trauma Support Team for over 11 years, where she has donated her time counseling law enforcement peers who have been involved in critical incidents. Throughout her career, Angela has earned numerous commendations for her work, including 6 department letters of commendation and the most prestigious law enforcement awards of a Meritorious Service Citation and the Missouri Medal of Valor Award. Angie was promoted in 2013 and excelled as a leader and mentor. She has supervised officers who served in various capacities, including patrol and the Violent Offenders Unit. Angie's passion for mental health awareness and law enforcement led her to develop a certified course aimed at officer wellness. It's titled Mental Aspects of Violent Encounters. After a great deal of positive feedback from officers, she was offered a position to teach her course to the entire department. We welcome Angie to the Brentwood Police Department to continue the great service and best protection for our community. Her passion for law enforcement, energy, and experience will be a great addition to our police department team and the city of Brentwood. Angie, can you come up, please? Cole's going to officially swear Angie in.
So repeat after me. I, Angela Hawkins, do
I-
solemnly swear
I, Angela Hawkins, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood,
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood,
that I will faithfully demean myself
that I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of Major for which I was appointed
for the office of Major for which I was appointed
on the 20th day of August 2018.
on the 20th day of August 2018.
If If I could, sir, her parents, Angie's parents are with us tonight. I'd like them to come up and present her badge to her.
Super.
Give you the honor of pinning this on your daughter. Finally, with regard to Major Hawkins, as the board knows, we have reorganized the police department, and Angie will be in charge of our Bureau of Community Policing at this point. I'd like to take a second to point out Jim McIntyre's in the office, or the audience in the back there. Jim's done an outstanding job in the city of Brentwood. He's going to take over as the major in charge of the Bureau of Administration at this point. So hopefully Jim's life got a little less stressful here.
So, Madam City Administrator, we've got a couple of promotions. Chief, do you want to handle
Yes, so
those?
the chief is back up here.
We've got a couple sergeants
Sergeant Nick Stanza.
in line for promotion.
Nick Standy, please go up, please. Chris, yep, come on up, good. When I arrived here a few months ago in Brentwood, we were short some sergeants, so we started a promotion process. Frankly, I didn't know either one of these guys when I got here. I think I might have met Nick once or twice, I really don't know, but I really didn't know either one of them. In the few months that I've been here, I can tell you that both of these guys are really integral parts of the process of protecting the city of Brentwood. Nick brings a unique energy for his job, and he'll do an excellent job as a supervisor for accountability for the officers that work for him. When I got here, Chris was already the firearms instructor, and something caught my attention right out of the box with his training of our officers at the range. They used the range to shoot on the move, and really what that means is it's not a static shoot. This is immediately somebody you recognize as interested in training, who wants real-life training to keep our officers safe. So Nick is going to take over a platoon, so he will be a watch commander in one of our platoons. Chris is going to continue in the officer safety program, so he will do a lot of different duties for the city of Brentwood. He will be our defensive tactics guy. He'll be our firearms officer. He'll be our officer safety role play training officer. He will do all our certifications for tasers, for mace, and all those other issues. So he has a complex job and a demanding boss, so this is going to be a challenge for them as well. If I could, I'd like to call Julie and Jennifer up here, please, their wives. Ladies, would you do the honor of pinning your badges on your husband? Make sure you
Excellent job. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you, Chief, and congratulations to Sergeant Stanzi and Sergeant Gibson. We have the upcoming items on the agenda, which are technically portions of public hearings for those of you that are staying with us and following along on the agenda. We've got 3 items coming up that will be handled by our Director of Development, Lisa Kirkemeyer, and I'm going to gavel those in. We'll take a moment to let those members of the family who've come for the recognition this evening to depart our meeting. And we thank you for being here. Sorry you couldn't stay. It was only going to get more exciting. And let's go ahead and gavel in the first public hearing of this evening at 7:35 PM. This is a public hearing to consider amendment of a conditional use permit and site plan review to expand the CUP to include sales, rental, and leasing, and storage of equipment involving any display, storage of parking out of doors for property zone planned development overlay district, and located at 1603 South Hanley Road. And there we go. Director Kirkemeyer, if you could please come forward and be available in case any one of our members of the audience have any questions. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, so that's an opportunity for you to come forward. If you have any questions, thoughts, suggestions regarding this topic, we'd like to hear from you first, since it is a public hearing, and then we'll check in with the elected members right afterwards. Anybody? If you do, please come forward, and we need to hear your name and address, please, sir, at the microphone. Thank you for being here. Hello there.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I'm Tom Dunn,
Okay.
DUNN.
Thank you.
I own 6 acres of property at 2740 Bompard.
Okay.
Very good developable property. What I'm asking is, I'm really looking for knowledge, and I'm not getting too much of it. We've got a public hearing tonight on a CUP located at 1603 South Hanley, which I believe is Home Depot.
Yes, sir.
Likewise, we have a public hearing for conditional use permit again under the Light Industrial District at 1206 Hanley Industrial. And thirdly, we have a conditional use permit for that parking lot, which is under the UD Urban Development District. My only question concerning these three is that conditional use permits will be considered this evening. And I wonder if, since they're under 3 different zoning categories, I wonder how that comes to play when my property is currently zoned industrial, light industrial, and conditional use permits that I can obtain.
Okay.
If I can get an answer on that. I've got several more, but I don't mean to take
It's okay. If you
all
could
the
just,
time here.
if you could give us a run of the questions, and then we'll try to have staff come up and give you a
Wonderful.
backup on those as best we can.
First of all, I'd like to know what in the devil is a consent agenda?
Okay. I can explain.
This
that
is,
to you
this
real-
is something holistically just what, created to get items through?
There are other municipalities, and including actually St. Louis County, the seat of our government, that uses this. I guess it's a framework or a template for.
Your Honor, point of order.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a public hearing with regard to 3 conditional use permits, and we're going to entertain a question with regard to the consent agenda at this point.
I understand. I'll still answer the question for you. It's very simple. It's
Well,
an
and
oppor-
I can wait until such
It's okay.
relative situation comes up. But given the agenda that I see, we only get item number 6, citizen comments.
You stated
But
that
we're-
accurately.
We're under public hearing number 5.
Right.
But if I
We're
could
not
just
there
answer your
yet.
let me just answer your question.
So
real
I
quick.
can abstain until,
Yes.
Just real quick, so the consent agenda is it's an opportunity to take usually those ministerial acts or those that don't require a lot of dialogue, questions, answers, or changes, so that we can take care of those in an expedited fashion.
Okay.
That's basically all that it is. If there are things in there that require debate, or there are things in there that require more attention, usually those can be taken off of at those and put into a new business.
but
Please, sir.
seriously, who decides to expedite? These are concerns I think we all have.
Sure.
So is this done by citizenry, or is it done by our own government?
Well, the Board of Aldermen have hired our city administrator to take under, with direction of our city attorney, those questions. And
Okay.
they follow a a protocol with their own departments to try to decide which items would be on that consent agenda. That's as best as I can answer it. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we may not. If we don't, then we would take them off the consent agenda, but that's the framework that we try to work within.
When does the zoning change that we've all proposed?
I'm sorry?
When does this zoning change that has been promoted and proposed by your studies?
If you could include that in your list of questions, I'll try to have them all answered.
Well,
for you.
this comes under the plan development, the CUP today, the
Okay.
CUP for LID,
Okay,
and the CUP for urban development.
okay.
Have these zonings been implemented?
Not yet.
Yet we're still going to look at a conditional use permit?
That's the reason why they're on the agenda.
If I may, the properties are not being rezoned. The zoning is not changing.
Then what is a plan development district?
I think it's in the planned development district, isn't it?
That's an overlay.
Handling, it's in that and in a base zoning district. It's
Okay.
not being changed.
I'm
It's
just
not
trying to get some
I understand.
real ground knowledge. Because the CUPs that are being considered come under 3 different zoning categories.
They're in 3 different places.
Yeah.
So
as
they
is
have,
mine.
each has their own zoning.
Okay. That will answer it temporarily. So the zoning has not been changed yet.
It's
Do
not
we know when
being
that'll
changed.
occur?
It's not being asked to be changed.
Well, the action that's to be considered hasn't been approved.
The actions, would you restate that, please?
The action that's contemplated by way of the public hearing and the ensuing legislation has not been enacted, no.
Okay. And then I can defer until a little bit later regarding a few of the other items.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks for being here. Does anybody else like to come forward during the public hearing, technically for item 5A, which is the conditional use permit amendment and the site plan review for 1603 South Hanley Road? And do any of the board members have any questions? Alderman Leahy.
Here, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask of the Lisa, if I may, a couple of questions on this. Lisa, the current conditional use permit for Home Depot
Right.
allows them some parking lot sales and displays, but is limited to, I think it's 3 times per year.
The original ordinance that approved the CUP back in 1995 does allow outdoor display and storage areas. The ordinance was included in your packet. It is vague. It just says the front area of the store.
Will this conditional use permit allow them to put more different displays and stuff out in the parking area throughout the year?
Sure. So this will be for 365 days a year. So I'm not sure again about the reference of, only so many times a year. This would be, again, storage that they could use throughout the year, and there would be 2 locations for it. So all of the area that you're probably have recognized as more of their nursery area on the south side of the store, that parking area would be allowed for outdoor display and storage. And then the new area that is proposed would be on the north side of the store along the property line, and that would be where all the larger rental equipment that is now like out by the front of the store, out by the road, would be then relocated back to the north side of the store.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Don't go too far,
Oh.
please. Closing the public hearing at 7:45 for item number 5A on our agenda. Moving up to 5B, this is a public hearing to consider conditional use permit and site plan review to allow motor vehicle repair for property zoned light industrial in a district located at 1206 Hanley Industrial Court. This is item 5B. Opening the public hearing now at 7:45. Members of the public, now's your opportunity to come forward. If you have any questions regarding this item, please do so with your name and address. And is anybody coming forward? Absent any members from the public, does anybody from the board have any questions for staff? Alderman Lockmiller.
Lisa, the parking lot repairs, is that just their section of the building, or will the entire building, including the EMS parking lot, be repaired?
It'll be for the whole entire site.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Closing the public hearing at 7:46 for item 5B up to 5C. This is a public hearing to consider amendment of a conditional use permit and site plan review to allow office development for the property zoned UD, Urban Development District, and located at property address 1819 South Hanley Road. Opening that public hearing now at 7:46. Would anybody from the public like to come forward and make a comment or question regarding that public hearing topic? Now is your opportunity. Absent that, anyone from staff? Anyone from the board? Questions for staff? All right. Thanks very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'm going to close that public hearing for item 5C regarding 1819 South Hanley Road. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first opportunity we have this evening for those members of our community that would like to give us their comments, questions, criticism, or compliments are certainly welcome. If you have the compliments, we'll give you an extended time to list those out. Please come forward. This is the first opportunity on the agenda for citizen comments. Going once. Twice. Okay, we have one coming up. Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith, and I live on Harrison. I had emailed Lisa and Bola, but it was some of these questions that I'm going to ask, and I apologize because it was not until later on this afternoon. I know that they would not have had a chance to get back with me, but I'm following up on one of the agenda items on tonight's agenda, the resolution 1104. Given the importance of this project and that it's not routine, and I didn't capture all the words that Alderman Kramer mentioned, but it's not something that requires a lot of dialogue or changes. I'm just surprised that it's listed under the consent portion of the agenda. To me, it's important that we are transparent about what the city is doing in relation to the Manchester Road projects. And even if the city wants to turn a large portion and very important part of this project over to a third party, I feel like the Board of Aldermen still needs to take accountability for that, and it's important for the board to discuss that and explain it to the public. There is an interesting exchange going on right now over in Maplewood in regards to the Sun-In project, and there's not been a lot of straightforward communication about what's been going on, and there are many citizens that are drawing conclusions, all of which may not be correct. And I'm not really intimately involved with that, but you've got people on both sides kind of arguing, going back and forth on that one. And I think, to the individual that was up here earlier, I think a lot of the business that the city does is complex. And sometimes I think that, you all are very familiar with what's going on because you get updated reports on a weekly basis. And you're part of the process that makes decisions about how the city is going to be run. But sometimes for somebody that's impacted by something that the city's doing, and it's the first time they're coming forward to understand how the city does its business, it's a little overwhelming. I think sometimes the cities do use that to their advantage, but I think you have an obligation as a board of aldermen to educate us and make sure that the public understands what we're doing. And I do think having an agenda filled with positive things that are going on in the city, such as the recognitions that we had earlier this evening, are good, but I don't think that we can shrink away from the responsibilities that we have as a board of aldermen regarding the work that needs to be done. So questions that I had posed to Bola and Lisa, I was wondering why this was a resolution instead of a bill, just to get some clarification on that. And then I read the proposal. In there it lists that the Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation is the developer, and I guess I thought that the developer was the city. And can we turn this over to a Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation when it's not made up of elected officials? Like they don't hold regular meetings, and so I'm just wondering how we as a city and citizens hold them accountable if they're sort of removed from the operations that of the Board of Aldermen in the city. I have asked this previously, but of the 91 properties that are being acquired, I understand that we have 3 projects going on. The Manchester, is it the state that is going to do the improvements on there, or the county?
Beautification. The state?
Okay, so the state's going to do some work that will require us to take some properties. Green River Greenway is going to do some work that will require some properties, and then we need to work on flood mitigation. And if we are ready to begin with acquisition proceedings, I'm assuming that we know now what properties need to be taken for those three purposes. And again, I just want to make sure that we understand what properties need to be taken. It was my understanding that not everything was going to need to be taken. Also, I didn't think residential properties were part of that, but it looked like in what I read, and again, I might not have read it correctly, but it looked like there were 35 residential properties, and so a little concerned about what that entails. And then lastly, the summaries for the redevelopment corporation, do we know when those are posted? They had a meeting on May 10th and May 22nd, and those are still not posted. So thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Now's the time to come forward. Need your name and address. And I apologize. To the extent that we didn't answer your questions before, we'll try to do it better this time.
You're doing a good job.
Please go ahead.
Again, I'm Tom Dunn, D-U-N-N. I own a property at 2740 Bompart, consists of 6 developable acres. About almost half of it is out of floodplain. As a quick setting the table, my property is being fully condemned. I can't understand why, but we'll get into that as this unfolds. The several other questions that I must have answered is, who is the Development Resource Partners, LLC? May I have that answer?
It's coming. Go ahead, if you want, don't mind.
And last, on the questions, who is Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation?
Okay.
Which one of those or both have the condemning authority, and how will this be negotiated?
Okay. Is that all on your questions? You've got many
I'm
more.
a little unsure how you answered about the zoning changes that are being proposed and or might be actually in effect.
Okay.
As mine is being arbitrarily changed.
Okay.
And this just gets back to, I'd like to know who also is being condemned into moratorium area, which doesn't apply to anybody else but us. When will I be able to obtain that information?
We're going to try to take a stab at your answers right now.
Okay,
Just
thank
please
you all.
stand by. Thank you, sir. Before we get to staff, does anyone on the Board of Aldermen have a reply for any of our residents this evening? And if not, Bola, if you could, please help us out.
Actually, some of the questions that Mr. Dunn has asked are addressed under memos that we provided to the board. So they fall under the consent agenda. I was led to believe that there might be some of those items that are pulled, so we can address them then, or I can address it now.
Okay.
Which,
If you could address generally, he was asking questions about who is the, who's the 353, who's the different development authorities.
The question of who's the Brentwood Redevelopment Authority and what role do they have, this is all dictated by state law. The 353 we refer to as Chapter 353 of the Missouri statutes, which requires the creation of a redevelopment corporation and reserves to it the obligation to fulfill the requirements of the statute and the responsibilities to carry out the redevelopment project as defined by the city. So it's a creation of the city intended to carry out the goals that the city has established. It is done in every 353 project which has been used by municipalities across the state for at least 40 years. It is a routine facility to see to it that blighted areas and substandard areas are reinvigorated and that the health and safety goals the city has are accomplished.
to his second question, who is DR P. They are development resource partners. The city solicited proposals from 3 firms for the acquisition, relocation services of properties along the Manchester Road Flood Mitigation Area Project, and DRP is one of the submittals to our request for proposal. They do relocation, acquisition, and for residential and commercial properties.
And it's a service that the city will utilize. All decisions concerning what to purchase, what to pay for it, whether to purchase it, whether to condemn, whether to acquire involuntarily, all will be made in open meetings by the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
With respect to why this is on the consent calendar, it is nothing more than a contract between the city and a service provider in consequence of seeking proposals, all the data of which is appended to the materials and sitting out on the table, and as for those who are online to look at it at any time. And concerning the consent agenda in toto, this is my idea, okay? I have done nothing but represent local governments for the past 40 years. I have observed some ways that are more effective and some ways that are less effective. And one of the values I think I bring to my clients is the ability to say, I saw something pretty neat the other day. You might want to try it. And others of my clients have been using consent agendas for generations in order to avoid muddying the waters of the business meeting with minor matters as to which there is no significant debate or dispute, and allow both the board members to focus their energy and allow the public to focus its attention on issues which are substantive and as to which there may indeed be a fair amount of debate or differences of opinion. It's not intended to conceal anything. It's intended to harbor our ability to focus and pay attention and stay alert and awake and sharp, and so that those energies are focused on matters of consequence as opposed to matters of routine. And so we don't have people sitting in the chairs in the audience or watching on television waiting us go through endless roll calls to approve yet another contract for vector control or services that the city routinely acquires on an annual basis. Those who have differences with it, do not blame the board, blame me for suggesting that they might find this helpful, and the public might find it helpful. And the board adopted the ordinance in June, and we're working through that process. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Attorney O'Keefe excellently stated. Thank you for your conversation, explanation. We may be asking another question about it again in the future. And I believe we addressed as many as we could, at least for the moment, of our citizen comments. There's another opportunity for you to weigh in again after we get through the consent agenda, to be honest. And perhaps there's something coming up. You might have another question. We'll do our best. As we move forward with the agenda now, we have the mayor and alderman reports. Assuming there's no one else coming forward for citizen comments, first up is the mayor's report. I can tell you that the mayor wishes he could have been here this evening. By the time the item that was in conflict for the agenda tonight with his interest was removed, he had already made other plans, and I believe was potentially looking at the size of this agenda, was excited at those other plans. And so yours truly is here in the chair, and we'll get through this. The next item on the agenda is an action item, so it asks for the board to look closely at this. We have an opportunity for, I guess it would be naming of the members or presenting and nominating members for the MPAC, Manchester Planning Advisory Committee. There was a memo that was issued and some other information about this particular topic from the Board of Aldermen. The mayor has recommended 3 members, Alderwoman Sims, Alderman Wegge, and Alderwoman O'Neill. And then from the Brentwood Urban Redevelopment Corporation, R353 Corp., Chris Jones from Ward 3, Dan Glowski from Ward 3, Jeff Gould from Ward 3, and then from the Planning and Zoning Commission of our city, from Ward 1, Tom Shipley, Ward 2, Sherry Bilderback, Ward 1, Rebecca Jacobs, Ward 2, Mike Favaza, Ward 3, John Ritter, Ward 1, Paul Moran, Ward 1, Hart Nelson, and the community representation recommended here and presented by the mayor for your consideration, Judy Chodini from Ward 3 and Bob Boley from Ward 4. With those recommendations, and in fact, would be a nomination by the mayor for the MPAC, we need a motion, if we could please, to confirm the mayor's appointment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
For a point of clarification first, I may be wrong about this, but I think Sherry Bilderback lives in Ward 1, not Ward 2.
It
I'm not sure
could
that
be.
that makes a huge difference.
Is
but
that
just to let-
inconsequential?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Scrivener's error.
Okay,
Is that correct?
that's fine then.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Leahy.
make a motion to approve the nominations to make up the Manchester Planning Advisory Committee.
Second?
And a second. We have a first and a second. In this case, Mr. City Attorney, do we need roll call, or is it by acclamation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you so much. We are now moving on with other parts of our agenda, and that would include the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen. So the board is requested to place an item on their calendar for September the 4th. The meeting is requested by the mayor to be at 6 p.m. That will take place here at City Hall. Manchester Road Economic Development and Revenue Opportunities, kind of the broad topic there. The tax question included there. Sustenance will be provided. Proposed meeting of 2 to 2.5 hours. And this is really just informational. I believe there will be a formal invitation going out that will require notation back to the deputy.
Right, we will send a formal notice to the entire board. Typically, we meet the first and third Mondays of every month, but the third is a holiday, so we will meet on a Tuesday. And the focus of that Board of Aldermen meeting on Tuesday, September 4th, will be the Manchester Renewal Project. We will have our consultants in attendance so that we are able to provide a comprehensive update on all our activities thus far. There will be planning consultants from planning, PGAV, Stiefel to talk about how much the city expects to generate from the economic development sales tax. The ultimate goal is that the board give consideration to placing that item on the April ballot 2019.
Okay. Any questions regarding that? And we hope that we will all be able to attend. It looks like it's an important meeting. Item up next on the agenda is Brentwood Days information from the mayor. A reminder for all those who'd like to attend, families, and all of our Brentwood residents for September the 15th and 16th this year, our usual location. The parade commencing at noon on the Saturday the 15th with the theme of Totally Awesome 80s. There are prizes for the parade entries this year. The first place entry $1,000, second place $750. Best musical act will also get a prize, and a third place entry will get a prize as well. There is a parade and flyer entry application, which I believe may be on the website as well.
There is, yes.
Is that correct? And once again, we're calling attention to the fact that we have our name of the festival event this year as Brentwood Days. The 2018 Brentwood Days coming up middle of September. Hope everybody can attend that. And the next item on the
Mr.
agenda.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if I may.
Go ahead.
If we could go back a second to the September 4 meeting.
Yes, sir.
Since we are rescheduling a regular meeting of the board, it is not automatic, I don't think it's automatically held the next day, and it's a different start time and a truncated special agenda. I would suggest it may be in order for a motion to be made to reschedule the September 3rd meeting to September 4th, 6 o'clock, with the agenda recommended by the mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anybody would like to make that?
I
Alderman
understand
Plufka?
that, isn't September 3rd Labor Day?
It's for.
Yeah.
So, but I think our ordinance already provides it
Yes.
in the event that it's a holiday, it's automatically moved to the next
The
day.
next day.
But you're
But
starting,
the start date is different.
6
the
p.m.
start time, and it's not a regular agenda.
Okay. Well, but would it be in addition to our regular meeting of that day?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know. I'm not certain what the mayor's plans are.
We have a regular Board of
We have a
Aldermen meeting
regular
that
board
night.
of meeting that
at
night. It
7.
would start at 7, but the request is that this start at 6.
Oh.
And there will only be one regular agenda item on there. All the others will be focused on the Manchester Renewal Project.
So the notion is we're going to complete that special meeting in an hour.
And a half.
I mean, is that?
No.
No?
It starts at 6.
Right, and if we start our regular Board of Aldermen meeting at 7?
No, the entire meeting starts at 6.
Oh, I see. So we probably do need to change the start time at least.
Can't hurt. Alderman Plufka.
So moved.
And a
Second.
We have a first and a second. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for enlightening us on that matter. We have a first and a second. And do we need,
Roll call, voice votes.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir. The next item on the agenda, we have a proposed resolution in support of Proposition D. This is informational, and for those of you who may not be aware, coming up on the November the 6th statewide ballot, there is a fuel tax topic that's coming up. And Madam City Administrator, is there anything you'd like to add? The Municipal League has a recommendation for a possible resolution in support, is that correct?
Right. So during the final week of the 2018 legislative session, the Missouri General Assembly passed House Bill 1460 that places a ballot measure on the November 6, 2018 ballot, increasing the state motor fuel tax. And we heard from the Missouri Municipal League last week asking that all municipalities within the state, the elected body, consider adopting a resolution in support of Missouri Proposition D. They also suggested that we consult with our city attorney to make sure that we can do that, and I consulted with Mr. O'Keefe last week. And if the board chooses, we can prepare for the September meeting a resolution following the model resolution that's been presented to us, so that you all could consider this if you so choose.
So potentially this could be, if the board so desired, they could act upon this at the next meeting and still be in time
Right.
to offer support, or?
November election is just an expression of opinion. You can do it
Okay.
anytime you want.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman Leahy.
Mr. O'Keefe, if I may ask the city attorney, it is my understanding under state statute that a city may not come out in favor or opposed to a campaign issue, but may only do educational material. Would a resolution supporting this, wouldn't that be a campaign in order to promote passing this item? And that would not be educational?
Well, I trust it would be educational, but,
Okay.
but beyond that, the original premise of your question is in error. It is not illegal for the city to favor or oppose a ballot proposition. It is illegal for the city to spend public funds in advocacy for a ballot proposition or against a ballot proposition. The statute also clearly allows public officials to make statements of positions and issue press releases and otherwise express to their constituents their views on matters on the ballot.
The public official may, but they're acting as a individual, not as the body itself.
The city's not spending any public funds for the purpose of
Okay.
considering this.
Thank you, sir.
And that's the only prohibition, is spending
Yes.
the taxpayer dollar.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Alderman Lockmiller? No, did you have
Well,
one?
a question, I guess. Do we need a motion then to
Yes.
direct staff to?
Yes.
We have a model
Yes.
proposal for a resolution, but it's not been drafted really for the city yet, but we
So
can propose that.
direction, if the board would like us to bring it back.
I guess we're saying we don't want to put it on the agenda if you're not going to pass it.
Right.
Exactly. I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to put together a resolution on Prop D.
Could we include in that some sort of memorandum of understanding or why does the Missouri Municipal League encourage us to consider,
Advocating.
why do they advocate that we should in turn adopt
If-
this?
If this passes, this will benefit all municipalities in the state to the tune of $60 million. And we typically, annually actually, multiple times during the year, apply to East-West Gateway for grants for transportation projects, for pedestrian projects. If you recall, the Handley Industrial Pedestrian Project, we applied for a grant for that. 80% of that was covered. Litzinger Road project, we applied for a grant in the tune of, in excess of $1 million. That was also approved. And we are in the process of applying, and this falls under one of my reports under City Administrator Report. We have applied for another TIP grant, Transportation Improvement Grant, and it has been shortlisted, so that is 1.2 million. So if there's more money to distribute statewide, then we have a greater opportunity to apply for more funding, not just from the Manchester Renewal Project, but other street projects that might come before the board to consider. So we will be the beneficiary if this is approved by the voters.
I would add that the ballot language materials on the agenda indicate that the proposition will generate $288 million annually to fund Missouri state law enforcement and $123 million annually to local governments for road construction and maintenance. I think that's why the state organization likes it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions regarding that motion for reformation of the Prop D resolution for consideration by the board? Alderman Weggie, go ahead, sorry. Oh, boy.
Can you get closer to? We will repeat
Volume's
that.
up.
Alderman Weggie,
Did
could
you hear
you
it?
stand by 1 second? We're going to bring a microphone, if we have one. Is it possible to use the mic from over there and bring it to this output here? Maybe we can do it that way. Sorry, Alderman, I saw you, but I didn't hear you fast enough. Please stand by.
Tin cans.
One more time, Alderman Weggie?
Yeah, since I'm unable to hear really any of that conversation, abstain from this vote.
It needs to come to this microphone of the laptop, I believe. Or no. One more time, Alderman Weggie, we're gonna ask you to stand by. We're doing this by kind of,
Maybe Morse code.
yeah, some smoke signals will be coming next. We have a special interpreter standing by. Anytime you're ready, give us a count, please.
Yeah, since I wasn't able to hear that conversation, I'm gonna abstain from this vote.
What did he say?
Because he couldn't hear it, he's gonna abstain.
Oh, he's going to
Oh,
abstain.
okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Abstain, I see it. Okay. We're using the written word. It's perfect. Thank you.
Did I see this in The Martian?
Yes. Motion and a second, and we have, before we have the abstention, we need to have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? We have the abstention recorded, would be Alderman Weggie. All right, thank you so much for your patience in that matter. We're going to move forward with our agenda, and we're up to the Alderman reports. Alderman Dimmitt, I believe you have something for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the next Ways and Means meeting, which will be September 6th, we're going to continue with the budget discussion for the year 2019. As you know, the budget is the result, or it really is the result of the various departments proposing to us how we should spend the city's revenues. And they have a lot of say in how we want to, and how we're going to do that. But at our next meeting is the public's opportunity to have a say. And I would encourage you to show up. There is no suggestion that is silly. However you think that we should be spending the money, we would love to hear from you. If you think we should be buying another street sweeper, if you think we should be improving our dog park, whatever you think, we would love to hear from the residents on their suggestions on how we should be spending this money. So I would encourage everybody to show up on September 6th at 6 o'clock here.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda, the Alderman Kramer's report, and I kind of, this is really the mayor's information as well. Just a reminder, it's also on nextdoor.com as of a few minutes ago. The Public Citizen Safety Seminar has been scheduled for the benefit of all of our residents, and if our neighbors would like to attend, you're welcome to. August the 27th, that's next Monday evening. It'll be from 6 p.m. until 7:30 in Room C, of the Brentwood Recreation Center. We hope that those of you who are maybe saw the last presentation over at the Drury Hotel or heard about it, maybe you're curious. It's a good opportunity to learn about some awareness topics, and there will be some coverage of self-defense. I do know that our city administrator is working in concert with our Director of Parks and Recreation on the potential for some self-defense classes. We hope to announce those in the not-too-distant future. And once again, that's August the 27th, so it's a week from tonight over at the Rec Center, 6 until 7:30. Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
I have two community announcements. The first one is the regular Ward 3 meeting for the month of August will be Tuesday night, the 28th at 7 p.m. here in the council room, and all are invited. The second announcement, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to promote, if I may, a fundraiser for a young lady, Lily LaMartina. The LaMartina family lives over here in Rock Hill. They're a member of the St. Mary Magdalene Parish. Lily is just about 5 years old and has Down syndrome, but was diagnosed 2 years ago with leukemia. And they're doing a car wash this Saturday, the 25th, at St. Mary Magdalene's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. to help offset some of the medical expenses. Lily also was the American Red Cross regional child and did a first pitch out with the Cardinals when they did the national blood donation promotion with the Cardinals. She is currently in her 8th month of remission with the leukemia treatment that she's currently under. So our hope and best wishes for good reports for the future. But if you're available and would like to get a good car wash, please come up on Saturday morning at St. Mary Magdalene's at Brentwood, Manchester, and help the LaMartina family. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Lockmiller.
Yeah, I guess I'll use this time to give the Public Work Committee a report. We wrapped up our discussion on looking at outside contractors versus keeping our trash service in-house, and during the city administrator's report, we'll be discussing that. Two important items we talked about was, as you've seen in the news, there was a discussion on our single stream recycling, which we currently do 670 tons of recycling material in 2017. We'll do more this year, and China doesn't want to have any of it. So you've heard Kirkwood has suspended their service, so we'll be discussing that further at our next meeting. It gets a little bit better. Staff has notified us that Bi-State is looking to convert a lot of their buses to electric over the next few years, and they're looking to use the garage down here in Brentwood as a charging station. Well, that will require Ameren to build a substation in order to generate that electricity, and that substation is looking right now proposed for the wetland area just south of the station. So staff is working and talking with both agencies, I'm correct, to try to find a better location for that, because as you know, that area is kind of critical in our flood control measures. So we'll be discussing that and other fun topics at the meeting Wednesday, September 12th, right here at 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Several items. Ward 4's meeting will be a week from Tuesday, August 28th at 6 o'clock in the Brentwood Forest Clubhouse. Ward 4, anybody is invited to Ward 4's meetings. Second is a report from the Library Board of Trustees. They have hired a second person to fill the spot that the director left when she became the director. So this is Hillary Gann. There's already Hillary on staff, so if you hear Hillary 1 and Hillary 2, this is Hillary 2. Her title is in charge of adult circulation and programming, and she comes from LA's Natural History Museum. She's already working on getting some new programs for adults, and the proposed one is called Just for Fun. It will be on various Friday evenings at 6 o'clock after the library has closed. And each month there will be a different genre, not a specific book to read, but for September's meeting on the 21st, if you want to read any science fiction book, come and talk about it and share ideas. There may also be the possibility of Sugar Fire Barbecue and Earthbound Beer, if that makes any addition. And then, what was the other thing?
When you said Sugar Fire, I lost all train of thought.
That may be it.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I knew there was something. The streets look wonderful. Paving those in the heat of July really deserves special accolades for our public works people. So I would like the city administrator and staff to convey to the people who were actually out there in that heat our thanks. They look good, and we appreciate their hard work.
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
All right.
Thank you, Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for mentioning about the safety seminar. It's the second one that our chief Joe has put together, and I think it's going to be well received. 2 days later, we're going to meet at Public Safety on the 29th. We're going to talk about traffic calming. We're also going to talk about get an updated report on the status of sidewalk repairs. There's been a couple of complaints made, not complaints, some questions raised by members of our ward, Alderman Dimmitt and my ward, having to do with the timing of when certain sidewalks are going to get done. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about McKnight Road and the current effort, joint effort between Ladue and Brentwood to try to come to some resolution as to what to do about not only the volume of the traffic on that road, but the type of traffic on that road. I also just wanted to report real quick. We talked about this in the public safety meetings a couple of different times and came up with a resolution that was going to allow our police to place a safety officer in our public schools here in Brentwood. And the school board had put together a resolution indicating that they would cooperate financially in that effort, taking on the lion's share of the salary responsibility for that officer. There was a sticking point at one point having to do with the car that officer would operate. We had a donation of that vehicle, and also even the signage, I believe, was donated. So that was another great thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Sims.
It is that time of year to have a Ward 2 meeting. We will be meeting here Wednesday, September 5th at 7 p.m. All are invited. We hope you will attend.
Thank you, Alderwoman. At the expense of trying our electronic magic once more time, Alderman Wegge, are you available?
Yeah,
Yes.
can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, since I haven't really been able to pick up on any public comment or any conversation, I'm going to abstain from all the votes. I am going to into the rest of the meeting, just so I can pick up some context, and I'll put up with the YouTube viewing in 2 days. So just be here sitting silently.
We thank you for your vote of spirit and conscience. Thank you for your being there, sir. We'll try to do better next time. It kind of happens with technology once in a while. City Administrator's report, up to the next item on our agenda, the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And we have our auditor, Jacob Myers, here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
He's
Madam
with
City
the-
Administrator, correct me if I'm wrong. If there's anyone else needs to come forward, Jacob, please. Welcome to the podium. Welcome to our meeting. And thank you for not nodding off while we've been waiting for your turn. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, first off, on behalf of Daniel Jones and Associates, I just want to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to perform the audit again this year. I'd also like to thank the Brentwood staff for providing all the massive amount of documentation that we asked them for. Within your reports, you'll find that we issued two opinions, one in the CAFR report and one in the internal control and compliance report. Brief summary of those opinions. The opinion in the CAFR is stating that we did not identify any material misstatements in your financial data. That's what you want to see. Essentially, we're putting our stamp of approval on the financial statements presented to you so that you can use them for decision making. The second audit opinion is the opinion over the internal controls. The only notation on the second opinion was related to the documentation of internal controls and risk assessments, which was the same as in the prior year, so there's no change there. Other than that, I'd be willing to answer any questions you might have over the audit process or the CAFR or internal control and compliance report.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Members of the board, does anyone have any questions for our auditor representative here this evening? You must have done a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your time and your reports. Yes,
Alderman
ma'am.
Kramer, may we have a motion to accept the 2017 comprehensive annual financial report?
So moved.
Absolutely.
Second.
We have a first and a second. And any questions regarding that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And we have an abstention already recorded, and thank you so much. That motion does carry. Thank you, Madam City Administrator. We move along with our agenda to the Manchester Renewal Project update, and Mr. Schluter, Craig Schluter, are you still here with us? Please come forward if you
Yes.
could. Thank you for your patience, sir. Whenever you're ready, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Uh-huh.
So my name is Craig Schluter with Navigate. So going through the city administrator update for August 20th, there were no investment costs spent in the month of June of 2018. The direct project costs, there were also no funds spent in the month of June of 2018. And indirect or sunk costs, $42,992.20 was spent on property acquisition, legal fees, Phase 1 property surveys, and project management costs. So overall, a pretty simple month. Any questions?
Questions? All right. And-
While Mr. Schluter is up, I've asked him
Yeah.
to speak about the cost share agreement and the process the city staff and our consultant team have jointly worked on regarding the Manchester Road project.
Please, sir.
On the cost share?
Mhm.
Sure. So we talked a couple months ago about the MoDOT cost share. This is a grant that Kirkwood and Brentwood came together on and submitted to MoDOT. Initially, when we submitted for the grant, they were all estimates, based on preliminary drawings, and it was thought that the city would receive $4,113,000 through the design phase and through allocation of funds and also estimating on more complete documents. The grant funds were updated. And if you look at that slide called the MoDOT Cost Share Grants Fund Update, the current grant funds that the city is going to be allocated, and this is now in a formal agreement from MoDOT. So before it was just grants, this is what we think we're going to receive. Now it's an actual legal agreement. It's $3,858,667. The good news, though, is through the negotiations between Navigate, Brentwood, and MoDOT, there are always discussions on who's handling what aspect of the project. One was the right-of-way incidental costs, who's handling all the discussions with property owners and also doing those offers on behalf of MoDOT. We didn't really know, but through the discussions, originally the city was going to have to pay for the parts of their project, but now MoDOT has said that they're going to handle that. So that increased the overall benefit to Brentwood by the $171,000 noted on the table. And then next, city construction engineering costs. So during construction, you need an engineering firm out there to make sure the construction crews are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Originally, we didn't know how those funds are going to be allocated, but MoDOT has said, Brentwood, we're going to take care of this. You don't have to pay for any of this. They're going to take care of it with state funds. So that's another $368,000. So while the grant funds are less, the overall betterment to Brentwood is better. So it was a very positive thing. So, so Kirkwood is going through the same process with their Board of Aldermen meeting. They did their first reading a couple weeks ago. They had no issues to report. Because we need the board here to approve this tonight, this allows MoDOT then to start the final agreement phases and start the property acquisition phases to keep their project on track, which is beyond just Brentwood and Kirkwood. That's where our grant is, but really their project goes to Rock Hill, to Pear, so on and so forth. So overall, it's all positive news. This is a big win for Brentwood, and the city attorney's gone through the agreement multiple times, and we're just hoping for a motion to ultimately approve the signing of the agreement with MoDOT.
Okay.
Then we heard the good news that our
On the SDP?
SDP.
Okay, so lastly,
Great.
so, you know, we're constantly being challenged to just look for partnerships and grants. So I just talked about the MoDOT cost share agreement. That's all good news. A month or two ago, we talked about the Great Rivers Greenway Memo of Understanding. That's another $3 million. And then more good news is the city sent in a grant on June 14th to East West Gateway for an STP grant, which is a Surface Transportation Grant. And the East West Gateway has shortlisted the city. So there were roughly 60 cities or government agencies that were not approved. There were around 40 that were shortlisted. And that will give the city $1.2 million if that grant is formally approved end of October. I have talked to East West Gateway. They said generally anyone that's in the shortlist gets funds. And the fact that it's a rated system, you know, between 70 and 100, and Brentwood got scored 84. So we're not in the lower aspect of the scoring system, almost like a school grading system. They're like generally anyone in that recommended funding section receives a grant. So while it's not a guarantee yet, the risk is very minimal, and we're really ecstatic about that $1.2 million that Brentwood should receive by end of October. So
Awesome.
again, all great news. When you add all that up, just in the actual grants, not even looking at the allocation of funds, we're over $8 million that we've received in the past 5 months for these projects. So it's all good news.
Phenomenal. Alderman Leahy.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm still under the impression that the Greater Riverway Transportation Arrangement, that their offer of the $3 million is still just a verbal offer. I don't think anything by them has been put in writing over the last 5 months. Is that still true?
The city executed a memo of understanding with Great Rivers Greenway. So there is that. I mean, it's a written memo of understanding, and they have verbally told us $3 million. They have not given the city of Brentwood a check, though, to your point. But it is something, it's at least written that there's a memo of understanding.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Craig, out there in the other related part of this topic, but not really in our sphere, is City of Ladou's project. Have you heard anything more about have they moved forward? Have they done anything at all?
I mean, I know they're in the study phases, but I don't know exactly where they are in their studies and design. But I can follow up and try to do some more research for you.
Just out of curiosity.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Thank you so much for your report this evening, and I think we covered it all, Bola?
So
one more?
if you would recognize Karen Shaw
Sure,
as
absolutely.
part of the Manchester Renewal
Finance
Project.
Director Karen Shaw, if you could please come up and
She
pass
also
along.
has an update on the investment
COPs?
services.
Okay.
I do not have that memo in front of me,
Okay.
but I do have some
Okay.
up here. The first part of it was the debt service requirement, or the
Yes.
reserve portion. It's a little over $3 million. That got invested either the next day or the day after the board approved arbitrage management. After that, we again met with Craig, and I think he redid that
Construction
the
schedule.
construction schedule twice. And based on that, the Brad Lucan spent probably a whole day putting together the various investments we needed to do to get the best amount for when each was coming due. We built in, we left $200,000 in cash in there. For instance, tonight when you approve the warrant list, we're going to go back and have tomorrow, this week, and pay some more bills, but we left 200,000 also cash for that, for cash flow. And then between Brad and Craig, we've got the money coming due, not right at the last minute, but maybe the month before, so that we get the most for what we can get it out of interest. And it's, as in the memo, it's commercial paper, a lot of federal agencies, and each one of those have all meet our criteria for our investment policy. But I will be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for the finance director? Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it. We're up to E, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we have, this is an action item. Our Public Works Director, Dan Gumersheimer, has somehow managed to wade through our boredom for quite a long time. Thank you for being here. And we have this item requiring our action for the sanitation services topic. We may be ready, sir.
I didn't know if you had any specific questions or if you wanted to kind of go through broad brush the executive summaries. As you're aware, and you've already stated, we went out for bids just to see if we were still competitive with the private sector, since we've been doing sanitation since 2004. Trying to get this just right. At any rate, we did that, and the bids were brought back. We actually had 3 competitive bids: Waste Connections, Meridian, Allied Republic. And then we compared those on a 5-year pro forma basis compared to what our budget is, sanitation capital improvements, and then workers' comp. And as you can see, the totals are there. I don't know if you had any specific questions about the financials or any specifics about how we went out for bid or any of that sort of thing. The competitive services would include same level of service that we have, with a few little exceptions. Right now, residents have to provide their own trash can. In this scenario, the trash can would be provided by the service provider. Recycling carts, recycling bins, those would still be provided at no charge, and still no charge to the residents for general services. So that would be yard waste weekly, regular refuse, and recycling. And then the one wrinkle, which you've already mentioned, was the recycling. We do curbside recycling. About 1/4 of what is put out is recycled, but Resource Management, who handles our recycling, said that effective October 31st, they won't take the recycling anymore either. So I actually have a meeting next week on the 29th with the Department of Public Health, and we're trying to look at other ways to continue recycling moving forward to keep it single stream. I don't know how effective it'll be, but we'll certainly bring that information through committee and through the board.
Dan, it looked like that, just cursory reading around the web, the other municipalities that are wrestling with the same problem, the search is on for those intended recipients of the collective recycling material who may be willing to pay. Is your sense that there is someone or some group out there that we haven't found yet that's willing to pay, or
I don't think there's any group that's going to pay. We pay right now, and I've done an analysis month over month, and it's escalated every single month. Right now, we're paying around $37 a ton to Resource Management. At the beginning of the year, it was in the low to mid 20s, and it's just gradually crept up. When I did meet with Waste Connections, they said that they do recycling for DePere and other cities. They said that they didn't even see the prices escalating to the level that they think they'll hit, which probably by 2019, because another series of contaminant levels are kicking in, they think it'll be like $100 to $110 a ton to recycle it. And putting that in perspective right now, regular trash that goes to the dump that isn't recycled is $50 a ton. So assuming that doesn't go up incrementally too, it's cheaper to throw things away that should be recycled, which is kind of a dilemma.
Alderman Wegge, you look like you have a comment.
I do, thanks. I just want to have it in your memo, but decision from Public Works was to keep this in-house. We did want to bring this in front of the full board because it is not the lowest cost option, but I think the way Dan compared these does a great job to try and show that Brentwood's trash collection internally is very competitive. When you go into the capital expense of a new truck, which there's a possibility maybe we'll get a grant or something, it's a little more expensive, but it still seems very competitive. So we certainly have the uncertainty of the recycling coming, but the recommendation from Public Works, which I fully support, is keep this internal and keep the trash the way it is now.
Thank you, Alderman. So Dan, you need from us a motion to keep it in-house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Other questions? Sorry. Alderman Lockmiller.
Yeah, I would just like to ditto as the chairman of Public Works, or Alderman Wege's comments.
Okay. Alderman Plufka?
And just really quick, so I've seen a couple of different times through Nextdoor and some other social media that we've had breakdowns with the trash hauling equipment a couple of times. And even if you accelerated from the planned 2021 capital expenditure, because it's still within that 5-year thing, it wouldn't do anything to that $3.5 million estimate as to cost over the 5 years, right? I mean,
Correct. I actually have in there 2 vehicles, which are correct, it'd be in that 5-year timeline. So
Okay.
the oldest one we have is a 2011 Freightliner, and then we also have a 2013. So those are in the fleet rotation, and it should be, pointed out that they are diesel. They have a lot of idle hours too. So it's not just the odometer reading, it's the amount of time that they spend idling, just moving, 10-foot increments or so.
so even if the acquisition of that new vehicle needed to be accelerated, it wouldn't really appreciably change what you've got here in this memorandum.
Correct. The numbers should stay relatively even as what I have here. And then, as you pointed out, we did get a grant for the 2016 Mac for a little over $70,000.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? So once again, we need a motion from one of the board to preserve our existing coverage through the city.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any questions regarding that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Wege, abstention, or were you in favor? He's in favor, so we have unanimous in favor. Thank you, Director Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And anything else we need to cover?
No.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, we are up to the fascinating topic of consent agenda. So I did have a chance to visit with the mayor about this on Friday. I've also visited with our city administrator and gotten some tutorial from our city attorney. And my intention here this evening is to read through the consent agenda items and to contemplate any questions that might be coming forward on any of those items and try to address those questions first. In all instances, to try to preserve the items that are on the consent agenda. If we cannot answer the questions, or if we cannot address any issues with regards to these items on the consent agenda, or if there's a request for debate on those items, any one of the aldermen then can come forward and request an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed into new business. So, before we get forward, let's hear what we're talking about, which first item is going to be our minutes approval, and that is the minutes that are in place for the July 16th, 2018 Board of Aldermen meeting. Next item on the consent agenda is our standing committee reports, and that's our 3, Public Safety, Ways and Means, Public Works. Item number C, Resolution 1104, Land Acquisition and Professional Relocation Services for the Manchester Renewal Project area. It's a resolution of the city approving an agreement with Development Resource Partners, LLC, and authorizing certain other actions. The other item, Resolution number 1107 for Vector Control Services, a resolution of our city authorizing a contract for that company with St. Louis County and authorizing certain other actions. Resolution 1109, Streetwise CAD hardware and software, resolution for our city approving an agreement with Hangar 14 Solutions, LLC, doing business as that Streetwise. Resolution 1110, Bed Bath & Beyond, a resolution finding the closure of Bed Bath & Beyond at the Brentwood Promenade and the opening of Bed Bath & Beyond at the Meridian would not constitute a relocation as described in Section 99.805 of the Missouri Revised Statutes. Item G, the ambulance billing settlement, a write-off request proposed and itemized here by Mandel & Mandel, LLP. Our warrant list for your consideration, and a special use permit coming up, the applications for Brentwood Days. And now, if we have any questions regarding any items on the consent agenda. Alderman Lockmiller.
I would like to pull the resolution 1104 and move it to new business based on citizen concerns that were addressed here tonight.
Okay. And I understand as a chair, we can do that. So we're going to move resolution 1104 down to new business. Do we have, ideally, we're going to entertain questions though first. Does anybody have any questions regarding any items on the consent agenda? Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is on Resolution 1110 for Bed Bath & Beyond. I am not 100% sure how the shifting of Bed Bath & Beyond from the promenade up to a TIF program is not a relocation issue. It takes the sales tax from an area that already has been TIFed out and paid off, and we end up losing the sales tax that we generate from that location to go to a TIF program that we may end up only seeing 42% of the sales tax it generates in the new location. I was under the impression that in the redevelopment agreement, it prevents the redevelopers from picking stores that are already in the area that prevent it from moving in. So I'm not sure how this doesn't qualify.
If I may just answer very briefly, I think probably the term that it's not a relocation is an oversimplification. What it is the question of whether or not the city can determine that the relocating business is a, quote, direct beneficiary of the tax increment financing. And given that the TIF, that's the question. Sales tax in the redevelopment area goes into the special allocation fund, economic development, economic activity taxes. They can be excluded if the city is able to determine on a factual basis that there has been, a company has relocated as a direct beneficiary of tax increment financing. The problem here is the TIF was established 17 years ago. So it has hardly enticed a precipitous move of this retailer from another location in town to this location. And that, hence, it's not a question of whether it's relocation. It's a question of, is the relocation a direct beneficiary of the TIF? And given the age, we do not see a factual basis to sustain that.
Can the city oppose this shifting, or does that interfere with retail?
We have no basis to.
interfere.
Nothing about this is a violation of any contractual obligations.
It just economically doesn't make sense to the city to say, yeah, let's move the sales tax that we're getting, the sales tax from the promenade, and move it up to a TIF area where we get a lot less.
Well, other than it may accelerate retirement of the TIF debt at the other location.
But we understand that that TIF is already in trouble, and that this shift isn't going to make that thing pay off any better than it was.
Well,
It's gonna hurt us.
It will enhance the ability of that TIF to pay down. I mean, it'll be an additional
Okay.
resource to that obligation.
Alderman Plufka.
I understand the explanation you just gave, and I wonder if in this context, do we have any obligation or any opportunity to review? The only thing I can think of is if Bed Bath & Beyond was somehow enticed by the developer with a lower than market
We have
lease.
reviewed, we have been provided their lease.
Okay, and that didn't seem out of the ordinary by a review of it?
No, sir.
Okay. I mean, I can't think of another way in which they would be a direct beneficiary of the move, as it pertains to this. They're still paying taxes.
They're paying taxes. The market rate, the rental rate is within market.
Competitive, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Okay, absent, well, go ahead.
Further question.
Yes, Alderman Leahy.
We have one item on this thing, and that's the write-down of the ambulance billing. We've seen a few of these each year. I find it very odd that we provide an emergency service to a patient who then claims that they cannot pay the full bill that the city incurs, but they can hire an attorney who gets the settlement cost out of the action, and we, the city, end up cutting the bill. And I find that to be not in the city's best interest. And I would love to have the safety committee, I think would have jurisdiction over this, take a look at how and why we would do this. Because I think it's poor. The attorneys end up getting a settlement fee, and I don't see them reducing their fees, but the city has to give up their fees for providing a good service.
So you are, go ahead. City attorney, who's coming with the?
No, I was making a silly comment about lawyers getting paid.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Nothing wrong with that.
City could hire its own
Alderman
attorney
Plufka.
and try to collect the bill, because the alternative is that Mandel and Mandel says, guess what, we're not paying the bill voluntarily, because the settlement falls through. So now the city has the entire bill.
Versus
And then
the
you get to
proposal.
go, and you get to go hire somebody to collect it. There is a transactional cost here no matter what.
But, and I yield to your expertise of being in the industry, but my dilemma is why does he go out and hire an attorney?
Well, it's
that
not
gets
just for
paid-
that bill, I would
But he
presume.
gets
Higher
paid,
injury, Andy.
and we end up cutting our services. I just don't think that that's economically reasonable for the city either.
Alderman Leahy, we have another alderman who'd like to weigh in. Alderman Dimmitt?
I don't see anything in here that indicates that Mandel and Mandel did not cut their fee.
Right.
Am I
That's
misreading
true,
that?
too.
Do you see that in there, that they didn't cut their fee?
No, I do not, I just assume, the
Okay.
attorney is getting paid for doing his service. Why
But you
shouldn't
don't
we
know
get-
how much they're getting paid, do you?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay.
But I do know how much it costs the city to provide the service.
Yeah, but if they compromised, if their claim in an effort to settle this on behalf of their client, they're not getting 100 cents on the dollar, the city's not getting 100 cents on the dollar, but they're getting something for their bill. Correct?
Would it not be on this type of bill, sir, that they get a percentage of what they pick? And the total settlement?
But if, in order to settle the case, if they have to compromise what they're going to recover, then they're going to ask everybody to compromise what they're going to get.
Right. Well, if they still get their 33% of the
But see,
settlement
that's a
fee.
problem. You're assuming they are. And I'm telling you, you don't know that.
No, sir, I do not have firsthand knowledge of that, but it's standard practice that something of that nature would be the way that attorneys would resolve these bills.
And that's based on what? Is that based on your experience?
Alderman Leahy and Dimmitt and Plufka, if we could just for the moment, let's check in with our city administrator. Is there any information that can illuminate this topic?
May we recognize Chief?
Absolutely. Chief, I didn't want to have to bring you up here, but if you have any information that would be illuminating, we'd love to hear from you, sir. Thank you for your patience.
Well, I'm hardly qualified to debate a room full of lawyers over this topic. However, I will say this, that in my very limited experience on these, fortunately, we don't do very many of these a year. The general attitude is take it or leave it. And this way, we do collect some of our fees back. We don't get them all. But if we walk away from this, we get zero.
Right.
So I don't write the policy. I don't make those rules. You all do. I'm simply bringing forward stuff that falls within the ambulance billing policy. So I don't know that I've answered any questions, but that's my role in this.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Anybody else have questions for the chief while he's here? Thank you for being here, by the way. Alderman Leahy, so this particular item, item G on the consent agenda, as the chair, I would ask if you intend to vote up or down on all the other items of this consent agenda based solely on item G, then you should let us know that, and we will entertain that request to move it to a separate.
Mr. Chairman, no, I am not voting up or down based on just that one
Okay.
issue. But I appreciate the chair giving me a chance to vent.
Surely. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding the items on the consent agenda? And absent none, we have moved one of the items, Resolution 1104, item C, down to new business. And so we're going to be asking for a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda as presented, absent item 9C. Please.
So moved.
Do we have a first?
Second.
And a second. First and second, any questions regarding that motion? And Mr. City Attorney, we need a roll call on this one?
Please, sir.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Yes. Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Abstain.
Abstain. We have a passage then of the consent agenda, is that correct? Does anything else need to be voiced on that at this point? All right. Thank you very much. Alderman Weggie, I apologize. I should have checked to see if you had any questions on the consent agenda. No, okay. I didn't see any hands waving or anything, so we're moving on with the agenda. And Chief Spees, if you are still around and available, it'd be great if you could help us out with 10A. We're going to try to navigate this memorandum of understanding with the Brentwood School District. And I think we may have some good news regarding the source of a vehicle.
Yes, sir. As Alderman Plufka mentioned earlier, we have SRO Craig Eisenbeis is in place at the schools. Early reports back from Craig and the school district are very positive. With regard to the car that you mentioned, they would not include that in the agreement. So Craig went out and I also did, and he was able to locate Londo Chevrolet, who's donating a vehicle for the program. Hopefully we'll have a MOU with Londo Chevrolet soon, and then we'll present it to you for approval. We also have a law firm here locally that Craig knows the people that run the law firm, and they've agreed to pay for the marking of the vehicle. We'd love to have this thing up and running before Brentwood Days and have it in our parade. I don't know if we're going to make that. Be kind of close, but it'll be marked as a DARE vehicle. It'll also have Londo Chevrolet as the provider of the vehicle, and the law firm will be mentioned on there as well.
Awesome.
Craig, we don't have anything at this point to show you other than Craig's phone if you want to see drawings or depictions of the vehicle. We just got these today.
And this is our school resource officer.
Craig's doing yes, he is our SRO.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Alderman Leahy.
Chief, in the memorandum that we have, it's now 1098.1.
Yes, sir.
The biggest change is that the school has put in that they would like us to pay based on a salary to work with, but they also put in that they would like the resource officer to be available for extracurricular activities.
Correct.
That would be meaning that the resource officer is now working overtime.
Correct.
To work with. When they say extracurricular activities, did they define that that is just a football or basketball game? Or is that anything that takes place at the school after 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Typically, no, it's not going to be anything after 3. It'll be the football, soccer games. And they will compensate for 2 officers, not only the SRO.
2 officers
Yes,
for
sir.
that one, okay.
So their overtime's being paid by the school.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? And so action that's needed from us at this point is
to adopt.
to adopt the resolution without any change.
I move to adopt Resolution 1098.1.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Questions regarding that item? And roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Wiggy.
He's abstaining.
Thank you so much. That
Abstain.
resolution passes. Alderman Weggie said yes or abstain. Abstain. Did you catch that?
Everything's gonna be abstained.
Okay.
He's abstaining.
He's abstaining from everything.
Thank you. We're moving on with our agenda. Thanks, Chief. Thanks for all your work on the SRO and ancillary topics there. We're going to revisit first the item from the consent agenda that need to be moved down to our new business consideration. Resolution 1104, land acquisition and professional relocation services for the Manchester Renewal Area. A resolution of the City of Brentwood, Missouri approving an agreement with Development Resource Partners, LLC, and authorizing certain other actions. Alderman Lockmiller, you requested this to be brought down to the new business. Please, sir.
Yes, Madam City Administrator, could you explain, I guess I'm looking at, well, the agreement and the page at the bottom where it has the fees for state statute, federal statute. What, could you explain the difference?
Actually, I have Attorney Mark Murray from Armstrong Teasdale.
Great.
They've worked very closely with me to help on this one.
Good evening. Briefly, we submitted or solicited 3 proposals from George Butler Associates, OR Colon, and Development Resource Partners. OR Colon also submitted a proposal. It was difficult to understand. It was responsive, but difficult to understand. Development Resources Partners had the best proposal overall in our analysis. So essentially, there's two different relocation laws that come into play with the projects, and depends on the involvement of federal funding. And so if federal funds are involved, you got to follow the Uniform Relocation Act, which is the federal law, which has a few more hoops to jump through and things to follow, and is more costly to comply with. And so that's why the pricing is slightly different for the Uniform Relocation Act properties as opposed to those that fall under the state statute, which is embedded in Chapter 523 of the revised statutes, which is a much simpler, less involved, and less expensive scheme that Missouri has set up for relocation.
So given a specific property, I mean, are some of these properties fall under the state statute and some fall under federal, or do they all fall under?
We anticipate that the vast majority of ones that Brentwood will be handling will be falling under the state statute. It's possible if there's some federal funding later down the road for some of the projects that are more towards the Brentwood side of the area, those might have some federal funding, and in that event, the Uniform Relocation Act would apply. But for example, the vast majority of the ones we're going to see with the flood mitigation program are going to be the state statute to play.
Okay. And then in their fees that they're charging for relocation, is this going to be on a parcel by parcel basis? So for instance, where Tesson Farms used to be, we're not relocating anybody there.
Hey, that's a great question. So yes, it's a la carte essentially. There's going to be a fee payable to DRP per parcel. So if we say we need you to relocate and make up an address, 123 Elm Street, they will say, okay, the fee for that is based on, it's either residential or commercial relocation based on that proposal. And so that's their fee. And then the relocation costs that are payable to a tenant or an occupant are over and above that. Those are based on the state statute.
Okay, so I believe, well, I'll ask Bull, I ask you, I think we have an exclusive realtor we're working with, and we have an exclusive title company we're working with.
Right, the board has approved all of those agreements.
Are
Yes.
some of these, in the scope of work here, just redundant on some of these things?
No, I think these are specialized in that they have a history. We have provided qualification and experience for Development Resource Partners, so it's a specialized area. And a good example I could give you is on the different projects that the city, pedestrian improvement projects that the city has worked on, we have hired in the past OR Colon to help us with permanent easement, temporary easement, for areas that we will improve on those parcels. So I can't say that any of the other agreements we have with realtors or appraisal firms, it would be redundant that we already have someone already doing that work. This is specialized and this is different.
Okay. And then, but the majority of the work they're going to be doing is the relocation.
Right.
We have to get into that after the negotiation of the purchase.
Exactly.
Okay. That's all I had, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you. In this memo, I don't know if you've seen the memo that was provided to us by staff, but it says there's a certain amount that will be paid for per business per address. So if there's, in the memo says, for example, if there are two businesses operating from the same parcel, then they would get paid twice.
That's correct. The relocation benefits are per occupant or per tenant. So if you've got one building and two tenants, each tenant can get relocation benefits.
Well, you might have just answered my question, but not, just in case you haven't, let's try it. Let's say hypothetically you have a building, and that building has operating out of it a company that manages that building. And then that also has operating out of it an accounting firm, and then another business. Is there some way to ensure that, do these businesses have to be occupants within a certain period of time? Or if they just go ahead and create an LLC tomorrow, are they going to get $2,400?
It's a good question, and my understanding is, and I don't have the statute committed memory, but you cannot move into a redevelopment area for the purpose of receiving benefits. So in your example, I would think that whoever the city selects, whether it's DRP, Oracle, and whoever it is, would evaluate it and say, wait a minute, you can't just form a company and now claim you're getting relocation benefits.
So they
And-
would do some investigation
Right.
to make sure whoever's
Exactly.
getting relocated
Correct.
had been there for a
And,
while.
and my understanding is they're also critical of, critical not in a negative pejorative way, but trying to discern if you've got residential tenants and you've got two people claiming to
Right.
be, we live in the same apartment, but we're not really living together, so we both get benefits. They're
Okay.
going to be critical of that situation, try to understand really what the dynamic
So
is,
that's-
and who's eligible.
That's another thing that the city's paying for. That's something that the city is
Yes.
getting by going with this special company.
They're going to, so if we tell them that we need you to look at 123 Elm Street for relocation benefits, they will examine what's being operated there, whether it's residential or commercial in nature, who the occupants are, what the situation is, and try to work with them and figure out what the situation is on the ground, and then provide all the notices they have to give under the statute. And for example, for residential, they give, I think it's 3 referrals to safe, decent rental housing in the same area, that kind of thing.
So what you're describing is something that a real estate agent or a title company would not do.
No, a title company absolutely would not do it. Real estate agent, I can't think of real estate agents that I work with in commercial real estate. Nobody I know dabbles in relocation services, I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Alderman Lockmiller.
Yeah, that kind of, I think this was brought up during the citizen comment, that in looking in the proposal, it lists 35 residential properties. But I think we're just got an apartment building. is
We
the only
just have the
residential.
apartment building, that is correct.
Yes, that's correct, Mary Avenue and Company. And
Right, 6 units.
I
believe.
think if you look at the PGAV map, there may be a rental house or two on the north side of Manchester behind one of the commercial buildings fronting on Manchester. There are a couple of rental houses, I think, back there, but they're not involved with this
This
phase of
Okay.
the project.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you for your time, sir.
Sure.
And your patience. Barring any further questions, we need a motion then to approve the contents of Resolution 1104.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any questions regarding that motion? And roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Yes. Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
And Alderman Wiggy.
Abstain.
Abstain. Resolution carries. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks to everyone whose patience is being perhaps tested a little bit here this evening. We're going to do the best we can. We're in the home stretch now. We have the rest of our new business, starting up with Bill number 6202. Mr. City Attorney, may we please have the first reading of Bill 6202 by title only?
Bill number 6202, first reading, an ordinance authorizing a cost-sharing agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission and the City of Kirkwood for Manchester Road improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. We have a brief synopsis here. An ordinance to approve a contract agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the cost share program agreement with Missouri MoDOT and the City of Kirkwood associated with the Missouri Manchester Road Improvement Project. Contract agreement for the cost share program outlines the estimated cost, financial responsibilities, payment terms, overall covenants, promises, and representations necessary to receive partial project funding reimbursement for transportation improvements along Manchester Road in the City of Kirkwood and the City of Brentwood. Do we have any questions regarding the motion, the bill number 6202? And so could we please have the second reading, Mr. City Attorney, of bill number 6202?
Bill number 6202, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing a cost-sharing agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission and the City of Kirkwood for Manchester Road improvements.
Any other questions regarding the motion? And a motion to
Your Honor.
perfect?
Mr. Chairman, a motion to perfect Bill 6202 into ordinance form.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Yes. Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
And Alderman Wiggy.
Abstain.
Bill number 6202 passes, and upon signature of the President of the Board of Aldermen becomes ordinance number 4851.
Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda, we're up to item number 6214. Mr. City Attorney, may we please have the first reading?
Bill number 6214, first reading an ordinance amending ordinance 3401. Have I got the right one here? I got the wrong one.
3401.
6214. That's what I hope. That's what I got. All right, we're going to find that here.
No problem.
No, this is the title. Bill number 6214, first reading. An ordinance amending a conditional use permit and site plan review to expand the conditional use permit for Home Depot to include sales, rental, leasing, and storage of equipment involving any display, storage, and parking of outdoor for property zone PD Development Overlay District located at 1603 South Hanley.
A little further illumination here on that particular bill. The petitioner, Home Depot, proposes to expand their conditional use permit and site plan approval received from our Board of Aldermen here on June 5th, 1995. Home Depot's operations continued to expand, offering additional products and services. More recent development is offering equipment rental. Given the size and need of space to allow customers to pick up and drop off the equipment is stored outside. The amendment for the CUP includes expanding the business use to allow sales, rental, leasing, and storage of equipment, and display and storage of rental equipment out of doors. The Commission recommended approval of the amendment to the conditional use permit and site development plan of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. That's our Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff requests the board consider the ordinance for first and second reading, which we're doing this evening. Project did not require a traffic review or parking study. Project area is entirely surrounded by commercial property, and no one apparently attended the P&Z meeting, provided any comments about the project after this entertaining. Bill 6214. Any questions? And Mr. City Attorney, could we please have the second reading?
Bill number 6214, second reading in consideration for adoption, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3401, which granted a conditional use permit and approved site development plan to Home Depot for property numbered 1603 South Hanley Road, providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to perfect Bill 6214 into ordinance form, please.
We have a first and a second. Any questions regarding that motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Abstain.
Bill number 6214 passes, and upon signature, the President of the Board of Aldermen becomes ordinance number 4852.
Mr. City Attorney, may we please have the first reading of Bill number 6215?
Bill number 6215, first reading, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit and site development plan approval to Bavarian Enterprises Incorporated for a motor vehicle repair use for property numbered 1206 Hanley Industrial Court, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Petitioner, Bavarian Enterprises, proposes a motor vehicle repair shop from the building existing locating at 1206 Hanley Industrial Court. Parcel includes a one-story building, approximately 20,000 square feet, currently used for office and warehouse space. Owner utilizes approximately 11,000 square feet of the space to operate EMS medical, and they desire to lease the remaining 9,000 square feet to the petitioner to operate their auto repair shop. Property zoned LID, Light Industrial District. Our commission checked this out, and they reviewed it with an approval rating of 7-0. Staff requests the order be considered first and second reading. We're doing that now. Does anybody have any questions regarding Bill 6215? Alderwoman O'Neill.
I'd like to check with staff, because this is so close to the school administrative offices, was there any concern about traffic or anything that would endanger the children?
I'll go ahead and answer that, Alderwoman O'Neill. So anytime we get any type of project proposal, we definitely ask Lee Cannon with CBB to review it, and we ask him to review it to see if any further traffic review would be necessary or a parking study. So this one, again, with low volume, there wasn't even a traffic review that was triggered by the proposal. And in terms of notices, everyone was noticed within 300 feet. There was one person, one party that actually did come to the P&Z with Lutheran Senior Services, and they actually supported the project, saying that the property was long overdue for needing something to happen and to clean it up. So we did not receive, though, any correspondence, though, from the administrative offices, and that's how the traffic review was checked and handled, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Thank you, Director Kirkenmeyer. Appreciate your patience here this evening as well. Mr. City Attorney, may we please have the second reading of Bill number 6215?
Bill number 6215, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance granting conditional use permit and site development plan approval to Bavarian Enterprises Incorporated for a motor vehicle repair use for property numbered 1206 Hanley Industrial Court and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Motion?
Motion, Your Honor, to perfect Bill 6215 into ordinance form, please.
Second.
First and a second. Any discussion or further questions regarding Bill 6215? Roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Bill number 6216 passes, and upon signature, President of the Board of Aldermen becomes ordinance number 4854.
Yes.
Yes.
6215. We got the intention. Everything else remains the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we are up to our final bill for this evening. Mr. City Attorney, may we please have the first reading of Bill number 6216?
Bill number 6216, first reading, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3954 as amended by ordinance number 4018, as amended by ordinance 4026, which granted conditional use permits and approved site development plans for Hanley Station development for property numbered 1801 through 1809 South Hanley Road and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Some of the illumination. This is the petitioner AKG Development, otherwise known as proposing a construction of development for Aspen Dental Offices at 1819 South Hanley Road. Site depicts 3,600 square feet dental office building, 6 parking spaces, 1 accessible space, infill sidewalks to connect the sidewalk along Hanley Road, and a couple trees and some green space. Site plan does not denote any change to the ingress access along South Hanley. Our Commission for Planning and Zoning recommended this in the vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, because of the immediacy and the fact that we have 1 meeting a month. They're requesting first and second reading. 6216, any questions? Mr. City Attorney, may we please have, oh, Steve, go ahead, sorry. Alderman Lockmiller.
Just a comment, it's great to see that final lot get filled in up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Mr. City Attorney, may we please have reading number 2 for 6216?
Bill number 6216, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending ordinance number 3954 as amended by ordinance number 4018 as amended by ordinance number 4026, which granted conditional use permits and approved site development plans for Hanley Station development for property numbered 1801 through 1819 South Hanley Road and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Motion to perfect Bill 6216 into ordinance form.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any questions or discussion regarding that bill? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Demmett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Bill number 6216 passes upon signature. President of the Board of Aldermen becomes ordinance number 4854.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you still with us here who've braved the last 2 hours and 19 minutes, or actually a little bit less than that with our late start, we thank you so much for being here, and we give you the final opportunity for citizen comments. If you have any, now would be the time to come forward, give us your name and address, and let us know what's on your mind. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sally Westenberger. I live at 2626 Bremerton Road. I want to say how much I appreciate Public Works with them having a broke-down equipment in the trash pickup. They did an excellent job. I also want to thank the Brentwood Fire Department and the Police Department for all the patrols I'm seeing on the streets in the city of Brentwood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Compliments are always welcome. Anybody else? Now's the opportunity. And we're going to close out on our public comments, and now we need a motion from a member of the board to recess into a closed meeting and adjourn therefrom for these items. Alderman Plufka.
I just have a question for our city attorney, although.
He's over here. Right here.
Oh, with regard to going into executive or closed session, do we only refer to items that are going to be considered in that closed session?
Yep.
And do I understand it that there was only 2 items and not 3 that we're going into closed session for, legal and real estate?
I believe there are 2 bases for the closed meeting. I know the number of items within that may be more than 2, but they are encompassed by the.
Okay, so with that in mind, I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to legal section, chapter 610.021, and pursuant to real estate, chapter 610.021, and that we adjourn from that closed session.
Yes, sir. First?
Second.
And a second. Any questions regarding that motion? Mr. City Attorney, is that a roll call or is that all?
Roll call, sir, yes.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
And Alderman Whitey.
Yep.
Abstain.
Yep, he didn't abstain for that one. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Where do you want us?
Across the hall, I believe.